Planning to go back to Singapore during this pandemic? Oh, how I wish someone would have simplified all the processes for me. And today, I'll be that someone for you. First of all, like how you plan any other trips, book your flight tickets. And if you can, try to book a direct flight because it's going to be a lot easier in the planning. You'll see what I mean later. Secondly, you need to know which type of travelers you are. Now basically, there's only 5 different groups of travelers that are allowed to travel into Singapore during this pandemic. And they are Singapore citizens and permanent residents, long-term pass holders or an immediate family member of Singaporean citizen as well as the PR. And then you have short-term business visitors as well as short-term social visitors, basically tourists. Lastly, you have emergency visits due to critical illness or death. Now, each of these has the specific criteria and requirement, and they're all written clearly in the website. So I'm actually coming back as a Singapore permanent resident, which is why today we'll go through all the processes for the first category. First step, you do not need approval to enter Singapore. Yay! So this entry approval thingy basically is an extra step that almost everyone else needs. And depending on what pass you're holding as well as which type of travelers you are, there are different travel lanes that you should apply to. It's a bit complicated if you ask me. But if you like my presentation style, I can study them and make another video about this. Let me know in the comments if you like that. So for now, let's focus on this group. Now remember I said something about transit is going to be tricky? Here's why. So the immigration of Singapore has classified regions all around the world into 4 different categories. And each of them has a different set of health control measures. Health control measures are basically rules that you have to follow, which mainly includes the documents you need to travel, as well as your quarantine duration and location. Here is the respective countries in their categories, and to simplify things, I'm going to call them Cat 1, 2, 3, and 4, where Cat stands for category. But how do I know which category I'm in? That will depend on your 21 days travel history. So basically, in the past 21 days before your arrival in Singapore, the country that you're in is what determines your category. Transits are tricky here because no matter how brief your transit is, that country is considered as part of your travel history. So for example, if I depart from a Cat 1 country but had a flight transit from a Cat 3 country, I'm supposed to follow every rules that's mandated for Cat 3 people. So take note when you're planning your flight transits because honestly speaking, the health control measure is quite different. Alright, now let's go to the categories one by one. So Cat 1, documents you need. SG arrival card, or I'll call it SGAC from now onwards, with an electronic health declaration. A pre-departure COVID swab test is not needed, and this is the only category that doesn't ask you for that. So on arrival, you will do a COVID PCR Swab test, and then you are supposed to stay in self-isolation until the result of that swab test is out. Once the result is out, usually in 24 hours, they'll text you, don't worry. If it's negative, you're free to go. Now for category 2, documents you need, SGAC with electronic health declaration, and a pre-departure COVID PCR swab test. On arrival, do another swab test, and off you go for your 7 days of quarantine, either in your own apartment or a self-sourced hotel. Lastly, on day 7, do another PCR swab test, and if it is negative, you are free. Now let's talk about Cat 3 and 4 together because it's very similar. I'll talk about the differences later. So, documents you need is exactly the same as Cat 2, your health declaration, SGAC, as well as your pre-departure COVID swab test. On arrival, do a PCR swab test and off you go for your 14 days of quarantine in a dedicated facility. So unlike Cat 2, you need to perform an antigen rapid test to yourself on day 3, 7, and 11. And then on your last day, day 14, do another PCR swab test. If that is negative, off you go. Now the main differences between Cat 3 and 4 is that Cat 3 has the eligibility to apply for quarantine in their own home if they are fully vaccinated. So it's something you can apply for, although approval may not be guaranteed, but at least it's still better than Cat 4. No, we don't have a choice. Oh yes, one last thing. If you're coming in from any of this country, there is an additional ART test that you need to do on arrival. So yep, PCR test plus an ART test. Got it? So in conclusion, to prep your journey into Singapore, you will need SGAC Health Declaration Form, Trace Together app, and most of you guys will need a pre-departure COVID swab test. Now let's get into a bit more details into these documents. The SGAC Electronic Health Declaration is an easy one. Just go into the website, fill in the blanks, click submit, and download the PDF into your smartphone. That's it. Job done. The only thing you need to take note of is to submit it 3 days before your departure. The next easy one is the Trace Together app. Download it beforehand, and this app is basically like a tracking device. It's to help the authorities with contact tracing. And just download it, set up an account according to the instructions, and clip your Bluetooth on. Your pre-departure COVID PCR swab test, however, has a lot more things to take note of. So the first thing is it should be done in an internationally accredited lab, clinic, or medical facility. So there's a website here that listed all those recognized medical facilities from all over the world. Just go into it and find one clinic that is suitable for you. Next, it should be done within 48 hours prior to your arrival time. So it is 48 hours, it used to be 72, but not anymore. Be aware of this. Also, the report needs to be in English, else get it professionally translated. It also should include your full name, your passport number, your date of birth, and a negative swab result with the date of test indicated on it. Now, one last thing you need to prepare is to arrange your COVID swab test on arrival. And of course, make payment for it. Now, there are links for you to register and make payment, but do note that if you're coming in by sea or by land, it is a different registration portal as opposed to coming in by flight. Although the price is still the same, $160 for a COVID PCR swab test, if you're required to do an additional ART test, it will be $67 extra. Now, once you've made payment, you will receive a QR code by email. Keep that handy in your phone because the staff over there needs it to facilitate the process. Finally, let's talk about cost. But before that, there's going to be a lot of links in the description so that you can have reference. I'll try to tidy them up. I just wanted to highlight 2 abbreviations that you will see a lot in all those descriptions. Now, the first one, SHN. It stands for Stay Home Notice. Basically, it just means quarantine. Yeah. Now, the next one is SDH. It stands for Stay Home Notice Dedicated Facility. So these are actually hotels chosen by the government to house travelers for their quarantine. And now let me show you this. Yeah, so you don't have to worry about payment. You can pay it upon checked-in. And 3, 2, 1, off. Oh, sorry, was it too short? Just pause the video if you have to. Let's move on now. So, your swab test. Now, I've mentioned it's $160 plus the $67 if applicable. And then the ART test kit is going to cost you $40 for a full set. Also, the swab test on your last day of quarantine will cost you $125. Although, there's this small asterisk down here that I don't quite understand. I mean, this is my second day of quarantine and I haven't been advised yet. So I guess we'll see how it goes. Alright guys, it's my bad that I've overlooked this, but that particular advice is actually printed in the stay home notice. This is basically a PDF file that you will receive once you have submitted your SGAC. I think this is the longest video I've ever recorded. And if you are still listening until now, well, might as well just click the subscribe button. And that's all for today. I wish you a safe journey, take care, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye!